it's something a little bit different because most talkback radio shows are kind of targeted at older people, and often the nature of them is to, well, discuss or to have an argument about issues, and often they turn into a disagreement, whereas with the forum we're trying to do something, well, a little bit different really, and trying to get people to communicate, to share with each other, and yeah, see how we can use that kind of talkback format to make a difference.
And so for your youth audience, how do you make it a uniquely youth show then?
Well, I guess, I mean, it's all about the sort of things you address, and it's about the sort of topics we bring up on the show, and that would be what I spend most of my time doing in terms of this show, not the on-air side of it, but trying to say, well, how can we address things that are actually, I guess, that are messing with people's lives as much as anything. So what are the things that your average 18 to 25-year-old or your average teenager even is going through? What are the things that affect their lives? What are the things they struggle with? So occasionally we address things like depression, eating disorders, relationship kind of dysfunction, and you've got the kind of deep or scarier things with that kind of side of life. But also, I mean, there's just the things that affect everybody's lives. I mean, we did a show a while ago about how do you fit in health and fitness into your life, or what are your thoughts on marriage and weddings. And so I guess it's trying to get a range of topics kind of covered on air, and looking at the fact that none of us exist in I guess, little spiritual bubbles. My name's George Penk, and this is the Forum on Life FM.
Have you been surprised at the sorts of issues that people want to talk about?
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, the kind of example that comes to mind first off would be a few weeks ago we did a show talking about, well, how have you got through hard times in your life? So we did a show which was, I guess, specifically targeted to giving people a chance to share their experiences and say, how has God maybe made a difference in your life recently? How has he brought you through some tough things? And one of the callers we got through on that show was from a girl whose one of her best friends had committed suicide a few days earlier, and the day before she had been to the funeral of that friend, and she said that for several years she had struggled with those thoughts herself, and considering, committing suicide herself, which is, I mean, obviously tragic. And she said it wasn't until she went to that funeral of her friend and she saw the effect that it had on her friend's family and other friends, and just the absolute pain and devastation it caused for them, that she realised that personally she could never take that step herself. She could never do that to those who loved her. And she came up with a great quote. She said, "Suicide doesn't end the pain, it simply passes it on to those who love you." And then within half an hour, still while we were on air on that show, we got an email from a girl who said that she had decided to commit suicide that day herself, and she had just written her letter to say goodbye to her family and said what she was doing. And she switched on the radio and she said she heard those words, she heard that girl's experiences, and she said, "I now know that I can never do that." And she quoted back that great line, "Suicide doesn't end the pain, it only passes it on to those who you love." And I emailed her back and, encouraged her, said that was great that she'd come to make that decision, and is there a pastor or a counsellor she could see? And by the next day she'd emailed me saying yes, she'd booked in to see a counsellor and she was going to get this thing sorted, and she'd talk to her parents.
Really appreciate your honesty. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm sure that might help someone else who's listening out there.
And why do you think some of these people come to Life FM and the Forum rather than reach out to the other support networks such as family or their churches? You said many are Christians, so why is that?
That's a very good question. I think it demonstrates the way that people do relate to radio and just how uniquely sort of powerful and personal it is, and the fact that we can have somebody on air, a relationship counsellor, and we can say, hey, text us your questions about these things, and people can text in, then they can get their question answered 5 minutes later. So in a way it seems crazy that people would respond to a radio station in a way like that, but it's also, it seems, well, entirely, it makes a lot of sense too, because radio, we know, reaches into people's lives and it meets them where they're at, and they can listen to it if they're having, if they're in a bad place in their bedroom by themselves or on their car on their way to work, and nobody else has to know that they're listening to it or interacting or responding to it.
And with some of the specific topics you've mentioned, suicide, depression, and recently the London riots, you'd say that they felt that they weren't being listened to. Is that the sense that you're getting from your listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, particularly with the London riots one, because I think the kind of recurring theme that came through that, because we were trying to, as a kind of a collective audience, trying to make some sense of that situation and say, well, how does something like this happen in a 21st century Western civilized society, right? And I think that the lesson, certainly that I learned out of that, is that there was a lot of hopelessness. There is a lot of hopelessness in that context in Britain today. And I think that extends, well, certainly to our own country too, unfortunately. And I guess it's this thing of saying, well, yes, there is a lot of hopelessness. People do need to be listened to, but how can you do that in a constructive way? With the kind of target audience of our show of youth and young adults, the way in which they respond, certainly this is just what I found from my experience of a couple of years of hosting the show anyway, is that they respond best not to necessarily somebody coming on the radio and saying, look, this is what to think about these things, or this is what this means. And in fact, I think they can often be a turn-off for that age group. But it's amazing the way in which they respond to when other people just share honestly what they've been through. And I mean, it is Christian radio, and I'm absolutely sort of unashamed, and I'm such a fanboy of Christian radio myself, and I have, yeah, it's a joy for me to be able to come on air and say exactly what I believe and how I think that fits in with the world around me. But at the same time, it's trying to be relevant and to a wider audience, and it's trying to actually encourage people who don't believe the same way as me to listen. It's interesting because often we hear from people in terms of feedback throughout the week after the show saying, oh, what that caller said on the line really impacts me or really helps me give a new understanding. And I'm thinking, yeah, me too.
I hear what you're saying. Maybe some other people would like to comment on that.
I think that what it is important to try and do, whatever context you've been placed in by God, is to say, well, how can I actually share some hope with people? And yeah, that's why I'm so excited to be able to do this in a small way.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Forum here tonight. The Forum will be back next Sunday night from 9 o'clock here on Life FM, so I'll see you then. I'll be back tomorrow night from 9 o'clock. Have a great night. See you later.